What if everything you believe about yourself is just a role you've been playing without realizing it? Have you ever stopped to think that maybe you're not the one fighting, running, trying to win this race of life? Maybe, and only maybe, you're just the one observing, the one feeling, the one behind all of this. We live immersed in a whirlwind of goals, deadlines, demands, plans, as if life were an infinite staircase where the next step is always worth more than the present. But who said your existence is limited to how much you produce, achieve, or deliver? Have you ever experienced this? That feeling of constantly moving but never moving, as if, no matter how hard you run, something inside you remains still, like a silent spectator. What you're about to discover may surprise you. This observer is you, your deepest self, the part that doesn't change with labels, failures, or titles. But to access it, you have to stop, breathe, and above all, take a step back. Yes, sometimes, you have to step back to truly wake up, because when you step away from the chaos, the anxiety, and the constant pressure to be more, you begin to see what was always there, but was obscured by the speed of your routine. Alan Watts said that true awakening happens when we realize we are not the actor on stage, but rather the consciousness watching the play. And perhaps this is the key to the inner freedom you so seek, understanding that you are not the race. You are the space where the race takes place. Stay with me until the end, because this isn't just a pretty idea. It's a game changer, a new way of seeing yourself, listening to yourself, and, most importantly, existing. How many times have you believed you needed to do more, be more, prove more, to then feel that your life made sense? How many sleepless nights? How many silenced doubts? How many just one more effort, repeated like an empty mantra? Maybe you spent so much time rushing that you forgot to realize voice, running. Or rather, because, what if I told you there's a way back, a point where everything slows down, where it's not you trying to find yourself, but life revealing itself in the silence? The mind will resist. It will want to remind you of your goals, your urgencies, your comparisons. But true awakening doesn't happen in haste. It happens in pause. The moment you dare to look at yourself not as one who judges, but as one who witnesses. And from here, a completely different journey begins. A journey where you are no longer the character trying to win, but the consciousness that finally awakens. Because when you start observing instead of reacting, something inside you changes. Not abruptly, not like a scream, but like a whisper you can finally hear. That silence that once felt empty now becomes full of meaning. And in that space between one thought and another, you might realize something simple yet profound. You were always here. You were just too distracted to notice. If this topic resonates with you, if at any point in this conversation something truly touched you, share it with me in the comments. I want to know. What moved you most? Have you ever felt the urge to stop the world and just observe? Your experience may resonate with so many others going through the same quest, and sometimes a single sentence of yours can be someone's wake-up call. And if this kind of reflection nourishes you, if this connection to something deeper resonates with you, take advantage, and like this video. It really helps keep this message alive, and spread this content to those who might need it right now, without even knowing it. If you want to continue this journey with me, subscribe to the channel. The idea here isn't to motivate you with ready-made formulas, but to invite you to look with greater presence, more truth, more awareness. Because your presence here isn't just welcome, it's essential. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people. With this type of content, this isn't just a video, it's a space where we can remember together what really matters. And now, as we delve deeper into this perspective, something begins to emerge. A new clarity, a new way of being in the world. Because there is a subtle trap that keeps us trapped, the illusion of control. We learn from an early age that life needs to be controlled, that happiness is synonymous with planning, achieving goals, and having everything under control. But this creates a silent tension, a constant effort to ensure everything is in the right place at the right time in the right way. But the more you try to control it, the more fragile you feel, because deep down, you know nothing is guaranteed, that the unexpected is part of life, that life slips through your fingers no matter how hard you squeeze. And that's where the revelation that could change everything comes in. Giving up control isn't failure, it's freedom. Alan Watts said, surrender to the flow. And not in the sense of passive surrender, but of conscious surrender. surrendering to what is without the desperate need to force what cannot be forced. Because when you let go, something amazing happens. You don't lose your way. You find your rhythm, yours. This surrender is the beginning of a new mindset, a shift that allows you to move from the position of weary warrior to that of awakened traveler. The mind, accustomed to controlling everything, will resist. You'll want to take back the wheel. You'll say, but what if it all goes wrong? And then you respond, not with anger, not with fear, but with presence. What if it works out in a way I never imagined? It is in this space that true transformation begins. You realize you don't have to chase yourself, because maybe, and this idea might be uncomfortable at first, you were never lost. You were just distracted. The rush, the excess of doing, proving, explaining, became a veil between you and your own essence. When you stop, when you silence your mind, when you enter that nothing that we fear so much, then everything begins to emerge with more clarity. And that doesn't happen with noise. It doesn't happen with catchphrases. It happens in a vacuum. The void is where everything is born. It's where you reconnect with what's real, with what matters, with what's always been there, but has been ignored amidst the noise of performance, expectations, and standards. Have you ever noticed how we keep trying? Fix yourself all the time, as if there were an ideal out there, unattainable, that forces you to always be a better version of yourself, without ever stopping to ask yourself, who defined this ideal, and why? But what if you didn't need to be better? What if you just needed to be? Life is not a problem to be solved. It is a reality to be experienced, felt, and lived with presence and awareness. That is what heals. Time may heal, but real healing happens when you look at yourself honestly. No masks, no filters, without wanting to appear as anything other than what you really are. And in this process, something beautiful emerges, a peace that doesn't depend on answers, a freedom that comes from within, because you begin to understand that the true journey outwards, whether through dreams, projects, travels, or challenges, always takes you inwards. And each step on this path is an invitation to look at the world with different eyes, not the eyes of those seeking control, security, or approval, but the eyes of those who awaken, of those who finally see. And in that instant, everything changes, not because the world has changed, but because you've changed the way you position yourself within it. Because when you begin to look within with courage, you realize that the external world is merely a reflection of your internal landscape. Everything you thought was out there, the anxiety, the pressure, the fear of not being enough, begins to reveal its true origin. It's not outside of you, it's within. But be careful. This is not guilt, it's freedom. Because if what holds you back is inside, the key is inside too. And here comes a point that is often overlooked, even by those who have already awakened on many levels. Silence. Not the silence of the environment, but the silence of the mind, the conscious void. This place where there is no need to understand, compare, measure, or react. Just be. It's uncomfortable at first, because we're addicted to stimuli. The mind craves noise, wants tasks, wants to be occupied. But in this silent space, clarity is born, and this clarity gives you something that no information can give: intuition. Intuition is the language of consciousness. It's subtle, it doesn't shout, it doesn't demand proof, but it speaks with a certainty that logic can't grasp, and it can only emerge when you stop filling every empty space with urgency. You know that feeling that you need to do something, that can't stop, that if you stop, everything falls apart? This is the ego trying to keep you in the wheel. But the truth is that stopping doesn't disorganize you. Stopping reorganizes you. To stop is to allow everything to fall back into place. Not the place in the world outside, but the place inside you, where the pieces fit together effortlessly. And when that happens, you start to see the behind the scenes of everything. Behind the scenes of your rush, behind the scenes of your decisions, behind the scenes of the masks you wore to protect yourself, to please, to fit in. And this awareness has a real impact, because for the first time you stop living on autopilot. You start making choices that come from within, not from without. You choose lightness, not demand. You choose presence, not performance. You choose to live, not just function. Perhaps right now you're remembering something you felt before, a moment when everything felt lighter, even for no reason, a peace that didn't depend on anything. That was a glimpse into his consciousness, and it's available now. But be careful. This awakening is not an arrival. It's a new beginning. Because the more you connect with this inner space, the more you realize that the world is not something to be conquered, but something to be experienced with curiosity. At every moment, a new revelation. With each pause, a new understanding. And the more you surrender to the flow of life, the more you feel that you are exactly where you are supposed to be. Control, after all, is an illusion created by fear. Surrender is the truth revealed by trust. And this trust isn't blind, it runs deep. It arises when you allow yourself to stop, observe, and accept, not as someone who gives up, but as someone who wakes up. And when this awakening happens, the whole world begins to respond differently. Not because he changed, but because the frequency with which you walk has changed. You stop vibrating in urgency, and it begins to vibrate in consciousness. At this point, it's no longer about what you're going to achieve. It's about how you're going to walk. It's about who you're going to be while you live. Because maybe the greatest achievement of your life isn't something you achieve, but someone you meet again, yourself. Now the next question is inevitable. If everything you seek is already within, why do we keep looking outside? And it is precisely at this point that everything begins to reveal itself more clearly. The incessant search for something out there, be it success, validation, peace, or happiness, is just a reflection of a disconnection with what already exists within. The truth is, most of us were taught to look for answers in the wrong places. Happiness became a destination, fulfillment, a medal, fulfillment, a distant goal. But what no one told you, or maybe they told you so subtly that you didn't even notice, is that everything you're running to achieve is already within you. Only you're too busy to notice. The world distracts you, routine swallows you up, and the noises take you away from what is purest, truest, most yours. And here comes one of the most transformative revelations of the journey. You don't need to chase after what is already yours by nature. You just have to stop long enough to remember. The now carries everything you have ever sought. But the mind trained in scarcity, comparison, and haste cannot see the present as sufficient. She wants the next step, the next achievement, the next compliment, the next result. But what if the real step is not forward but inward? What if, instead of constantly projecting yourself into the future, you withdrew into the present? What if, instead of looking for something new, you started to value what already exists? Alan Watts said that nothing is not the end, it is where everything begins. And that makes perfect sense, because when you allow yourself to enter into that nothingness, that silence, that pause, everything that seemed confusing begins to take shape. You begin to see that the feelings you tried to suppress, ignore, or rationalize are actually messengers. They don't want to be fought, they want to be heard. The anxiety you're trying to control is pointing to a place within you that hasn't yet been embraced. The sadness that insists on returning may be a call to slow down. The fear that paralyzes may just be the absence of presence. And when you listen, instead of repressing, when you embrace, instead of judging, a quiet revolution begins to happen. The revolution of consciousness. Little by little, you stop being a hostage to your own mind. You stop living in eternal survival mode. You start to really live. And truly living is not about intensity. It's about depth. It's about being whole in what you do, even if what you're doing is just breathing. How many times have you breathed today without realizing it? How many times have you looked inside and asked, what do I really feel right now? Few do this, and not because they can't, but because they never learned that this is the way. But now you know, and once consciousness expands, it never returns to the same size. She keeps asking for space. She keeps calling you inside. And the more you answer that call, the more you realize there's nothing wrong with you. You were just away from home, and now it's coming back, returning to your center, returning to its essence, returning to that point of silence where everything reveals itself effortlessly. And when you get there, you understand. About finding all the answers. It's about stopping running away from questions. It's about sitting with them, let them echo, and allow them, in due time, to reveal what words cannot reach. It is there, at that subtle point between emptiness and everything, that true awakening resides. And there's still something we need to touch on, an aspect that goes unnoticed by almost everyone, but that, when understood, changes the way you view every moment of your existence. It is present all the time, but hidden under the veil of distraction. Because what is about to emerge from this depth is no longer an idea, a beautiful theory, or a spiritual concept. It's something alive, timeless, untranslatable with precision, but possible to be felt when you stop trying to understand and just allow it. There is a point at which silence is no longer empty. It is presence. It's as if you cross an invisible boundary between the mind that analyzes and the consciousness that simply is. And there, in that naked, effortless presence, you come face to face with the one truth that never changes. You already are. No need to prove yourself. No need to mold yourself. You don't need to rush to achieve an ideal. You are already the space where everything happens. The observer, the stage, life happening in itself through you. And here's what almost no one realizes. The more you try to be someone, the further you get from who you really are. Because this someone you're trying to build is based on external references, on the way others look at you, on social standards, on the expectations you've been taught to carry as if they were your own. But there's a huge relief when you let it go, when you allow everything you thought needed to be to just fall away. And what's left? That leaves you. There is plenty of presence. There is peace left. And with that peace comes a freedom that is priceless. The freedom of not having to react to everything. The freedom of not having to understand everything. The freedom to just live. Live with intention, with truth, with lightness, without the armor of perfection, without the weight of the past, without anxiety about the future. It is in this space that time changes. The hours don't run. They breathe with you. You stop being a slave to the clock and become a co-author of the moment. And when you look around, you realize that the world remains the same, but your eyes are not the same anymore. You see beauty where you once saw obligation. You see depth where before you saw routine. You see connection where before there was only rush. This is the transformation that does not come from outside. It is born when you stop looking, when you understand that you no longer need to move to find yourself. You just need to allow yourself to stop. And maybe now, something inside you is starting to let go. An old tension, a rigid belief, a silent demand. You don't need to carry all that. Life doesn't require you to endure. She invites you to flow. Because at the end of the day, everything you're trying to achieve out there is not what you really want. You want the feeling you think it will give you. But that feeling is already available. Here, now. You don't have to wait for the scenery to change to feel it. You just need to allow yourself to feel, without needing justifications. And in that feeling, you return home, to this silent center that has always been here. Calm, firm, attentive. It's this place that sustains you, even when everything seems to fall apart. It is this space that shows you that life, even in its most confusing moments, always had a meaning. But he was not in the words, nor in the achievements. It was in the feeling, not realizing, not to be. And maybe, at that moment, you're already starting to remember this. If you've made it this far, it's because something inside you resonated with this message. And that, in itself, is powerful. A sign that there's a space within you, perhaps silent, perhaps forgotten, that's beginning to awaken. So if this content resonated with you, if at any point you felt like, this is what I needed to hear today, take advantage and subscribe to the channel, because we'll continue exploring these deeper layers together, with conversations that provoke, welcome, and awaken. Leave your like too, not only because it helps the channel grow, but because it shows that this type of reflection has space, has value, and needs to reach more people who, like you, are on this sincere search for themselves. And tell me in the comments, right there, I'm with you until the end, just so I know you were here, present until the last second, feeling everything with me. Oh, and if you want to continue diving into this path of awareness and presence, there's a video right here that complements exactly what we talked about today. Click and stay with me there. The journey is just beginning.